Hello, BWeb members. This is part 2 to the Introduction to Tableau, which is part of the Tech Committee's Technical Workshop series. I'm one of the managers on the Tech Committee, and I'll be going through the second part of this Tableau introduction with you today. Today we'll be creating more sophisticated visualizations using the filter functionality. We will also be going over how to create more polished and interactive dashboards as opposed to the more static dashboard we created last time. Further, we'll be going over how to embed the created dashboard into a website. Okay, let's get started. First things first, if you haven't already downloaded Tableau, go ahead and pause this video and follow these steps to get your free year-long license to Tableau. It'll be helpful to follow along on your own desktop as we go through these examples. Next, we'll be going into a brief review of characteristics of data fields of data connected or imported into Tableau. As you may remember, data fields or pills are created when a field is moved into the view from the data panel in Tableau. Pills have a characteristic that is either dimension or measure. A dimension, as you may remember, is usually numeric and quantitative in nature, and a measure is usually categorical and qualitative in nature. A pill is also either continuous or discrete. Continuous is usually, again, numerical, and discrete is usually categorical. This is important because it determines the level of functionality in the analysis. And as mentioned last time, these are flexible. You can directly change a measure to be dimension or the characteristic of the pill to be continuous or discrete. Of course, this is something that should be used with caution, because if you change something to an incompatible type, you may end up with null values. Now we'll go ahead and illustrate the importance of these characteristics. Since we went over how to connect data last time, today we'll be using some of the built-in saved data sources in Tableau. Under the Connect panel that you see when you open Tableau, within that section under Save Data Sources, we'll be using both Sample Superstore and World Indicators. Now let's go ahead and go into Tableau. So if you go under Connect and then Saved Data Sources, let's start with World Indicators. Okay, and to sort of illustrate the importance of understanding the characteristics of data, here are dimensions, which again are categorical. If you were to drag region, for example, onto this view, and let's do it specifically with color, you'll see that you'll get distinctive colors. And that's because, of course, the regions of the world, like Europe, Africa, the Middle East, it's not on a spectrum. These are categorical by nature. Then if we clear this and we drag, let's say, GDP, we'll see a more solid color and not a gradient. Again, because of the nature of the characteristics of this data field. Okay, moving on, let's go ahead and clear this. We are going to create 3 visualizations utilizing this filter functionality so that we can incorporate those into our first interactive dashboard. So the first visualization that we'll be making is one that tries to illustrate the relationship between a country's internet usage and phone usage, as well as its like population and CO2 emissions to see if there's any sort of relationship between those. In this slide, I've sort of outlined what I did with this first visualization, but feel free to use whatever measures or dimensions you prefer to do the analysis that you think is like most interesting. So I'll go ahead and start. In columns, I will have country/region. And then in rows, I will have CO2 emissions, as well as internet usage and mobile phone usage and the population total, which you can find under. Okay, so population can actually be found under this population bin, unsurprisingly. And we want to take the population total and add that as a row. And then now we have everything that we want. And, it's revealing in some ways. We see China, for example, has a large population total, but doesn't have the largest mobile usage in comparison to population total. Same goes for internet usage, but that doesn't necessarily apply to CO2 emissions. Okay, so now that we have this view, we want to change the colors just to distinguish between the different measures. So we'll go here and we'll change this color to orange, I suppose. Really any color that distinguishes it from the rest of the measures. So we can make this one green. Okay, and so far this visualization looks pretty good. In terms of viewing, if you want to see all the countries, as you can tell, we have to scroll a bit here. You can change this standard view to the entire view. It's a little harder to see, but at least you can see all of the countries at once. Okay, and now we're gonna add some filters. So since this is an aggregate of data over time, we wanna add year. So I'm gonna drag year over into filter, and it's gonna ask me how I want to filter on year. So I could choose year, quarters, month, days, like all these different levels of like granularities. For our specific purposes, I'm going to choose years, and then I'll go to next, and then I can select, at this point I could select a specific year. So maybe I'm really interested in like 2008, for example, since that's when there's specific economic downturn. I could specifically select 2008, but for now I'm going to go ahead and just use all of them and click OK. So I won't see any changes to my visualization because before I had all of the years as well. The main goal in me using this filter on year right now is further down the line when I make the dashboard interactive, I want to be able to select by year then, which is why I'm adding this filter now. Conversely, you can also just build out your visualizations, and then when you go to move your visualizations onto your dashboard, if there are elements that you want to filter on, you can use this like functionality that like switches you back into your workbook, and you can make those changes. And that might be easier because sometimes it's hard in Foresight to see like what specific things you want to filter on. But regardless, another thing that I'd like to filter on is country and region, since as we know, there's a lot of variation at the country level. And then the same thing will come up. At this time, I will also be selecting all of the countries and saying okay. And then again, I won't see any changes to my visualization as it is. And so now what's left to do is really just name this visualization. So we can call it perhaps like productivity measures. Okay, and then that'll be that for this. Oh, I need to change it here as well. Okay, first visualization done. Now let's go ahead and do the second visualization. So I'll go back to here. For the second visualization, I chose to focus on the year as my column value, and then I looked at average life expectancy, and then the sum of the health and infant mortality. And you'll see here that I used the average as opposed to the sum. Sum, as I mentioned last time, is the default, usually, especially at different like levels of like aggregated data. But sometimes the sum, as you'll see in this case, is not very helpful or like revealing of that specific statistic. And so you can change the calculated statistics. And then I filtered on here, as well as country and region again. So let's go into Tableau and create this visualization. We'll add a new worksheet. Go ahead and call this one health/life measures. And we'll also change it down here. Okay, so I had year in the column, as well as the life expectancy by female. I chose female mostly because we're going to be looking at the infant mortality and health expenditures, and I think that those are more closely related. But again, feel free to look at whatever you think is interesting in your specific case. And I'm going to choose I'll go ahead and select this visualization. It's pretty like simple table of sorts. You can go ahead and close this window. And then as you'll see, this life expectancy statistic is oddly high. I mean, the years in the thousands, which is strange for human life, which is usually nowhere near that long. So here we'll go and change this calculation to be the average. And then we get numbers that are much more realistic, and we see them increasing over time as we may intuitively expect. So once again, usually at this level of like aggregation, the sum will be the default, but it's important to kind of like inspect the data and make educated assumptions about what seems right and what seems sort of out of line. And if you are gathering this data yourself, you'll be much more sensitive and aware and able to make these judgments quickly. Okay, I think that's it for our second visualization. Let's go ahead and do our third. Okay, now we will go ahead and make our third and final visualization. So let's add a worksheet, go over to our slides, get a rough overview. What I was thinking here was we could map the geographical data, seeing the average GDP and the percentile of the population that is urban to see if there's any correlation between those, and then again filtering by year and country so that down the line we can use those as sort of like an interactive tool. But again, feel free to use the measures and dimensions of your choice. So start with country, then I will add the urban population percentage, or actually, no, first, let's add GDP. Now, looks about right. Oh, well, actually, that looks incredibly high. So again, I think a more appropriate measure here would be an average as opposed to what we have right now, which is like kind of like this large aggregate over time. So change this to average and then go ahead and add population urban and change that to percentile. Now we hover over, we can get an idea of percentages of urban residents. And then we can also change the colors of this to make it potentially more insightful, I believe. Change this. Let's see what this does. Ooh, that was probably not the best idea. Oh, okay, so that was my mistake, sorry. Made the range larger on accident. So we'll go back to edit colors, which is something we went over last time. Make this number smaller. And yes, okay, that is most definitely better. So we can hover over and kind of see what kind of correlation there is between the GDP and the percentage of the population that lives in an urban area. So yeah, there's that. Now we're also going to go ahead and add the filters. So let's add the country region filter. Again, we're going to use all, and we'll also be adding year. And select year. You can choose any time frame or time period that you'd like. For our purposes, year is appropriate. And then, oh, actually, I will show y'all the kind of like filtering features that you can add to your worksheet quickly. So this is specifically the GDP in 2004. So the US, like looking at like about 12 trillion or so. So we can edit this filter, change it to 2012, and you'll see that these numbers have significantly changed. Okay, let's edit the filter. Use all and go back to this view. And we can name this worksheet GDP urban population. Let's call this here too. GDP urban population. Okay, so now we have all three of our worksheets, and so we are ready to go ahead and make our first kind of like interactive dashboard. So as you remember from last time, to get started using a dashboard, instead of making a new worksheet, you'll be making a dashboard. Go ahead and click on that, and then you will see all your sheets. And then just to go over this kind of in greater detail, at the bottom of Tableau, just like I just showed you, find the icon that you're looking for and then click on that to select a dashboard. And then once you get to that view, you can select the device type and either tiled or floating for the layout, and I'll show you that in a minute. The one thing to note is that tiled will resize automatically between screen size. So like, let's say you're embedding this code or this like dashboard on a website, and you know for a fact that the visitors to this site will be both on mobile and desktop, or like mobile and tablet and desktop. So you want the layout to be flexible. That might be a good time to use tiled, but really it's kind of a matter of personal preference and what you prefer. So I'm just going to use tiled for the sake of simplicity. Going to change, okay, yeah. So desktop browser, fixed size, I'm gonna do automatic so that it fits the screen. And let's just start dragging things in. So here are my productivity measures. Now I want to add this map. Let's put it, yes, here. So the nice thing about tiled is that it'll sort of like adjust for you, whereas floating, well, here, let me show you what floating does. Let me undo this. Floating kind of just like suspends the worksheet in the dashboard, which may be useful in certain circumstances, or if you're like really great at formatting on your own. I personally am not, but I will go back to tiled and drag this back out, and then put this here. And then lastly, we'll move this here. And then I'm seeing now this doesn't need all this space, so I can move it down. Well, not that far down. Yeah, this looks about good. Maybe a little more. Yeah, okay. So now I have the basis for my dashboard and I want to make it interactive. So right now, if I click on Greenland, for example, I just get like the statistics from this specific worksheet. But I want to be able to click on Greenland and learn about the specific statistics here, like the health spending, infant mortality, and the average life expectancy within Greenland over time. And I also want to know about Greenland's CO2 emissions, internet usage, mobile phone usage, all this great stuff. So I'm going to unclick from that and I'm going to click over here, use as filter. So now that I'm using this as a filter, when I click on Brazil, for example, I'll see Brazil's over time average CO2 emissions, internet usage, mobile phone usage, and then population total. But if you, as you may have noticed, there was no change to this workbook or like worksheet. So that must mean that I am not filtering by year or by country. So what I can do is I can go to this and I can go to this sheet. And sure enough, I see that this is this like generated set, and it's not something that I have built into this worksheet already. So I'm gonna need to add this filter, use all. I'm also gonna want to filter by year. Again, go ahead and do all the years. Okay, now when I return to this dashboard and I click on Argentina, I should see these numbers changing. Yeah, so that's exactly what happened. Okay, see Brazil, Argentina, you'll see these numbers changing. And now I can get a closer look at specifically the health and life within Argentina. And we can compare that to a country that should be drastically different. Yeah, Congo, you can see the life expectancy has changed. And so now we've made this interactive in this sense of filtering using this specific workbook right here, this GDP by urban population. So let's say I want to filter by year. So I'm gonna go over here and I'm going to click on 2000. But as you'll notice, that doesn't really have an effect on the collective dashboard because I've elicited to filter by this. So what I can do is I can also choose to filter by this work sheet. So I'll click use, oh, sorry, not that, use as a filter. So now when I click on 2000, that will change things that are going on in both of these. And so since I had already clicked on Congo, I'm now filtering by country and year. So that's why you're not seeing internet usage or mobile phone usage, because that data probably isn't available for Congo, you know, just given global context. But what I can do is click out of this, and then I will see specifics on a global level for 2000. And yeah, so like you can see the shift. Take a look at this average GDP number for the US, and then if we move it over to 2010, yeah, we'll see that that number is a lot higher. And we'll also see significant increase in mobile usage. Wow, do you see that? That's like kind of incredible. Okay, anyways, that is a way to filter using the worksheets themselves as kind of like an interactive tool. And then further to further reiterate this point, if I click on this, specifically country, you'll see again that does not have an impact on either one of these because we have not chosen to use this as a filter. So once I use that as a filter, these will change. And then this is the Cayman Islands. I don't know if there's data on that, but like, let's click Austria. Yeah, so Austria, you'll see this data on Austria. And this is also specifically for 2009 because this is being used to filter. So at this point, all of these visualizations are being used to filter. So if I click productivity measures, if I click GDP by urban population, if I click health and life, either of any of these three will have some kind of impact on how I view the data in the other worksheets. So that's all great, but we want to like further this functionality, right? Like maybe whoever is using this data or interpreting this data doesn't want to interact with it on this workbook level. So what we can do is add filters to this side panel. So let's X out of, oh, that did not mean to zoom. Let's just, okay, now that I've sort of like reset everything and unselected everything, let's go ahead and start adding filters to this side panel here. So to do that, we will click here, more options and filters. So here I'll see the filters that are available to me. So one of those is year, another is country. So let's go ahead and do country. This is sort of a lot to scroll through, so I can change this by right-clicking and changing it to a multiple value drop-down list. So now, let's say I'm especially interested in Belgium and I don't know, Bulgaria. Now I can compare them side by side. And I can see, well, okay. This, as you can see, only changed this specific worksheet. So like this filter only applies to this worksheet. So if I want to filter on the other, to filter these same values on other worksheets, I'm gonna have to add that same filter. So filters, country region, can also change that to multiple values drop down. And so then if I were to select Belgium and Bulgaria in this situation, I would get those numbers here. And then I could do the same here, but let's add a more interesting filter. Let's do a filter that involves the year. So this is also, I think, not that great, just there's a lot going on. You can right click and change it to a slider. It works really well for years, and then you can kind of like see the difference in years. And again, this, since this is being filtered on this specific worksheet, it is only going to change this worksheet within. But now we have like a pretty solid, like relatively interactive dashboard. So what we can do is embed this into a website. So I'm going to go back here now that we've created our dashboard and learned how to use filters and learned how to go back to workbooks and add filters. We can embed our dashboard. So the first thing you need to do is create a Tableau public account. If you don't have one already, you can go to this link. It's really easy to set one up. And then once you have one set up, go back into Tableau and go to Server, Tableau Public, save to Tableau Public as. An error occurred while trying to save the workbook. Oh, usually this does not happen, but okay, my apologies. In case you're wondering what happened, sometimes you need to have the appropriate amount of data extracted for kind of like the functionality and optimization of Tableau, and I needed to extract some of that data. Hopefully you won't run into this problem, but if you do, you will just go to data and hover over whatever has been specified to you that needs to be extracted and just extract that data. So now, going back to embedding your dashboard, we'll go to Server, Tableau Public, and then save to Tableau Public as. So here, Server, and it should work now. Yes, okay, so I've already logged in. It may prompt you to log in. We can just call this global measures dashboard. Generic name, and then we'll hit save. And it will be saving our dashboard. It may take some time. Okay, and so now that it's been published, you can edit things. You might want to hide your profile link or include it, or restrict people's downloads from it. You can give it a description as opposed to just a title. You can show the workbook sheets as tabs as opposed to kind of this collective view. But yeah, you just adjust it as necessary. Save. And then you will see your dashboard on Tableau Public. And then going back to this. So now that you have this in published on Tableau Public, to embed it, you will click this share icon. And here is the embedded code. So you're going to take this and copy it. And depending on what you're doing, let's say you're building your own web page from scratch, so you already have some understanding of web development, you can just take this, it's just one div, and put it wherever it's appropriate for you. And then if you're using something like Webflow or Wix or some other site creator tool that kind of extracts the code away, you can just find built into these platforms, there's some kind of embedded code functionality. Just find that and then copy and paste the code there. So to show you on Webflow, you'll have something that probably like this, where you can add an element, and then you could add a div block, but probably best to embed. Yeah, embed. So you just click on this and just paste your code. If you don't have either of those, we can kind of set up a HTML file of sorts to kind of mimic that. So you can go to this W3 editor and paste the code within the body tags. Don't concern yourself with what a body tag is if you don't know. And then run the code and you'll kind of like see a brief preview of what we're gonna see. Then copy all of that code into a text editor. I personally like Sublime. Anything is fine. Text edit for Mac or any Windows equivalent. And then save the file as HTML and open it with the web browser of your choice. So I will do that quickly here. This is W3 Schools. Here is the body tag. Put it right here, pasting my code. As you can see, this is everything that goes into the dashboard. No need to change anything. When you run it, you will see your dashboard. Yeah, there you go. And then you can get rid of this as a heading, this paragraph, if you want to, but that's not important. And then you'll have your visualization dashboard collective thing. So now take all of this, Command A, copy it, and open your text editor, paste, save it wherever you prefer. And then open with web browser. And now we have our dashboard in Chrome. So that's nice. Of course, this is not exactly a website, but you know, this is like the steps that you would take to embed this dashboard into your code. And so this makes it very easy to share with whoever you need to. And yeah, just kind of a useful extension of Tableau, or extension of like how to share your dashboard more accurately. And then I shared this last time, but Tableau software has made their e-learning courses free for 90 days. You can go to this link and use this access code and go through the lessons provided there. You can also take DH 101 or 150 at UCLA and learn more about Tableau if that is of interest to you. And yeah, the only thing is that with the 150 classes, not all of them necessarily incorporate Tableau, but you will be able to tell from the course description whether or not it does pretty easily. And then the credits. And that is the main portion of this presentation for this week. I will also be going into a second example of a dashboard with more sample data if you'd like to stick around, but otherwise, thank you. And yes, I will go into the second example now. Okay, so here is the second creating an interactive dashboard example. This example takes inspiration from the super data science. Okay, so starting off, we'll be using the sample superstore dataset, which comes sort of like built into Tableau under these saved data sources. So just click sample superstore, and then you'll have what you need. I'm just closing this because I already had it open. So this is kind of like this data set sort of examines profit and manufacturing by industry, manufacturer, and state within the United States. So that's kind of just like a rough idea of this specific data set. So the first visualization that we're going to create is interested in understanding the profit by category. So in column, we'll have the sum of profit, and in the rows you will have category. And then since this is categorical, it'll subdivide by furniture, office supplies, and technology. Just to show the functionality of filters again, say we were only interested in technology, for example, we would take category, put over filter, and uncheck the other two. But in this case, we are interested in all three. In fact, we're also interested in the subcategory, so we can move that over here, and now we can see the category, and within it, its subcategories. And since this is profit, we want to make these colors more meaningful, so we can go to, okay, so what we can do here is take this sum value, press shift, drag it into color, and now you can see it's kind of changed a bit, but what you'll need to do is go here and edit the color. And what we want to do, since this is profit, we want to know what is profitable, so we can change the center to be 0, and we can change this to be some potential something that involves some like red. So red, blue, diverging, I think is appropriate in this case. And then we will move this profit back up to here. Yeah, and so that kind of gives us an idea of what is profitable and what isn't. So I think that'll work for the first sheet. We can just go ahead and call this profit. Okay, and then now let's create the second sheet for visualization. So new worksheet. This time we want to look at profit on a state level. So we have all the states, and let's drag profit. And then again, we can edit these colors so that we have 0 at the center, and it's the same red, blue gradient. And then if you want these colors to be a little bolder, what you can do is use the full color range, and some of these states may appear to be bolder. So this can be, you can call this profit by state. Profit is not the best name over here on this sheet. We can maybe call it profit by category. Profit. Okay. Let's make one more sheet or visualization, whatever you choose to call it. Let's look at the profit by the manufacturer. So let's drag in the manufacturer and then profit. And again, let's edit these colors. To keep everything consistent. Okay. And oh, sorry. Full color range. Okay. And let's change it to this. Okay, yeah, that looks good. Also, a little hard to read, so what we can do is shift And then we see that there's a lot going on. So again, like I showed you earlier, you can change the view by entire view, but then things are still pretty crammed. And since we're concerned with profit, what we can do is go to this and show filter and actually edit the filter here. Sorry for any confusion. Actually, you're filtering by manufacturer in this case, since these are individually the manufacturers. Yeah, like the sum here, there's no really need to filter by that. Anyways, click here. Sort first, since we want to know those that are losing the most profit. So field that intersects profit, we can do descending or ascending, and we do want to do the aggregation by sum, so that looks good. Go ahead and close that, and then here again we want to filter. Previously we had used this like use all, but now since these are just too many values, we'll go to the top, and in this case we will actually take the bottom 20 or so profit. So okay, looks good. And then now this is a lot more visible. We can see which manufacturers aren't doing quite as well, and we can give this some color. That's not exactly what I wanted. Oh yeah, sorry. You would be using this value. And there we go. So you can see these manufacturers are enduring a large profit loss. We can look at quantity or sales, like in addition to that. So you can drag quantity over and sales. And this might give us insight into why certain manufacturers may be experiencing the level of profit loss that they are. And I think that that is about it for our final visualization. So we can call this manufacturing, like profit manufacturer. Okay, so now let's make our visualization. Go ahead. To make our dashboard, go to dashboard, create a new dashboard for tiled, desktop, automatic, and we can start with product category. We can move profit by state over, and then profit by manufacturer. And then now that I look at this, probably could have fit another visualization in here, but for now what we have is fine. What we want to work on now is adding these interactive elements to make this as interactive as possible. So right now, if we click on California, it doesn't do much for us. So use this as a filter, and then when you click on states, it becomes much more revealing. So California, clicking on California will show to us the subcategories and categories and the profits. So it seems that tables are not doing well, evidently. And then Texas. We can also make these visualizations a form of filter. So maybe we're interested in furniture specifically, or let's click out of this. No, come back here. Okay, I will go through the rest of these filterings relatively quickly. So now that we've zoomed out of this profit by state, let's make a filter by category. So let's go into here and filters, filter by category. And now I can filter by furniture, office supplies, or technology. And we can also add a subcategory filter. So filters by subcategory. And what we can do here is select only relevant values. That way, when I click furniture, I only get furniture choices. So when I click tech, okay, and unclick furniture, I'm not going to get tables anymore. And that is very helpful for making things easier for whoever is using your visualization to understand any trends or just like be familiar with what they're doing. Okay, and then let's say that I want to add something, like I want to add a regional filter. I want to add a year filter. So go here, go back to the sheet, and you'll see I can do region or city or postal code. Year is not specifically an option in this case. Okay, so one more thing to mention is that you might have noticed when you're clicking on these categories and choosing subcategories, like furniture, for example, or books or cases, like only this visualization or worksheet is changing. So you, like in the previous example, I showed you how you could add equivalent filters for these worksheets. But if you want them to all like work together and simultaneously change based on these like newly added filters, something that you can do is right click and click over apply for worksheets, and you can do all using related data sources. Or of course you could select the worksheets or those that are using this data source, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. And so now that you see when we click on these things, we will see the change. No, apparently, oh, okay, yeah. You'll see the changes where they're relevant. So let's say that we want to have a different filter. Let's say we want region. So let's go here, like region, as in like the south, the east coast, the west coast. We'll go here, filters, click on region. Again, when we first start changing this, you'll see that it's only affecting this worksheet. So what we can do is right click and apply to all using related data sources. Yeah, so now if we click on the west, we'll see statistics specific to the west or statistics specific to the south. And then we can do tech, phones in the south, or copiers. Yeah, and so this gives your visualization a greater level of detail and flexibility. But yeah, you can definitely add more filters. You can go back, see what categories might be relevant to whatever you're trying to achieve. But that's all I have for today. Thank you for watching through, and I will see you all next time, I suppose. Thanks. Goodbye.